No, Laura, yes, you do. No, no,
I
Laura,
haven't
not.
met you yet in
No.
person.
So, and what is very unique that we are all from New Zealand, right? That is
Yeah.
really, it hasn't happened in 4 years. So great. I'm looking forward to this. Um, a word about copyright. I just repeated quickly, and so it's on the video recording. This is all everything you get, you see on the screen, you hear from me, you see in the recordings. This is obviously copyrighted by me, and this is only for your personal use for the training and after, of course, when you use it, but not to be reproduced, copied, given away, or shared on social medias, or taking screenshots and put them on Facebook because you find them so interested. Yeah. If you want to do something that you find interested for posts, which is great, do your own post. Yeah. You can quote me if you wanted to. That's fine. I'm happy with that, but you cannot copy and paste anything that I have produced. Thank you for um, respecting that. If you want to take screenshots, that's totally fine. It's for your own personal learning, and you put it in your notebook, and I'm totally okay with that. So, okay, so now we are back on track. What do we expect from training module 1? Training module 1 is all about the 3 orders of love of Bert Hellinger. Bert Hellinger, who has discovered this groundbreaking and the deep healing methodology, with whom I have trained for many, many years, and also worked with him. And he is an outstanding human being with so much passion and compassion for um, for people. He was a former priest. He was a Catholic priest. I don't know whether you know that. He was a missionary in Africa, and he really was so passionate, and he wanted to help. And then he got frustrated about the structures and the church and everything else, and figured that he cannot help as much as he wanted at all in this structure he was in, and he quit the church and he married an ex-nun and started to study psychology, and he became a therapist, psychology therapist. And then also he found out he cannot help. He was always on the lookout. It was his destiny to find that what really helps, what has a really deep impact. And through his work as a psychotherapist, he discovered that when he has group sessions, which he had, he was specialized in supervision of other psychologists. He discovered that when he wanted to um, go through a case with somebody, and he asked the others to stand up and be placeholders for the people he's talking about, that they start involuntarily to move and to feel something and to express things, and that ignited his curiosity, and then he found out literally through experiencing in his own work that there is a field which we will talk a lot about, the field of information, the morphogenetic field, and that he can work with it. And this can indeed reveal information that are so important for a deep healing experience for the client. And then in turn, later he found out for the whole family system. And through this work, with this all from nothing is theoretically, that was all through observation, he also discovered that there is an order. There is an order in the family system. And he called it the orders of love. In German, die Ordnungen der Liebe. This is now translated to English, literally. There is a book that translates, the title is different. It's called Love's Hidden Symmetry. But in German, it is also called Die Ordnungen der Liebe, aka the Orders of Love. So if you're looking for the book and you find in English Love's Hidden Symmetries, that's the Orders of Love. So in this module, I will convey as good as I can his original findings about the Orders of Love. It is super important, and that is one I am there passionate about, that to pass on his originally method. There's many, 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 many years now of family constellation facilitators out there in the world. They all do their job, and I'm sure the majority does a good job, at least have very good intentions, but not, it's like in yoga, you cannot really find anything from Bert Hellinger in this work anymore, right? It's mixed with therapy and this and that. And I think it's very questionable how deep this really heals compared to if you apply the orders of love in a family constellation, right? And I have to say, I know facilitators, they facilitate family constellation, they have never heard from the orders of love. So that's just saying. This is the basic of the work. And we will not deviate from it, because when we are deviating from it, we don't know where we end. We don't know if we have an impact. If there's any healing going on in the family system, we can't tell. So we are very strict following the orders of love. And the good news is, because it's an order, I can teach it and you can learn it. It's not something gooey, hooey, intuitively thing that you can or cannot do. No, it's a scientific method that is conveyable, and you can learn it, and you can also use it in your work. So that is the good news. And this is why I will always point out, and you will hear me saying that a lot, that we only work with the orders of love when we facilitate family constellation. So that's what we do in this module, that is today, tomorrow, and Sunday evening as well. What's next? What you cannot expect from this training, especially in module 1, is that you know it all. It is a start, yeah. So it is a start to start with your journey to learn about the depth of a family system and the relationships in there and the dynamics in there. So this course is in 5 modules, and all 5 modules are important for the complete picture. Yeah. So why I'm saying that is that I know how enthusiastic one is, including me, to learn something new, and then can't wait to convey that to others. But I warn you, it will not be understood. Yeah. It cannot be understood before you don't understand the whole picture. And Bert Hellinger's orders of love have been very controversial in the 1980s. Yeah, he had the dynamic and the relationship he discovered between victim and perpetrator, for example, was dismissed by society completely because it did not fit into the picture. Yeah, into the picture one had. It is not as bad anymore, but it's still, for people who have never heard from Bert Hellinger and the orders of love and have never done any family constellation work, some information, they sound shocking. Yeah. So I warn you, don't use it in conversations with people. Wait till we have finished the 5, at least the first 3 modules, before you start to talk to others. Yeah, other than your training fellow trainees, of course, right? Of course, they are all safe to talk to, because you will only run into problem. That's normally the case, and you find yourself in a situation where you need to defend Bert Hellinger's orders of love without having the tools to do so, right? Yeah, okay, so that's my word of warning. And what is very important when you learn about the orders of love is, first of all, for your own personal growth, that you see and feel and maybe even research, how does this apply to your own family system? Yeah, that is the first step of learning, is first of all, look inside, look in your own family system. Yeah, this is very important, and do not try to educate others with this information. Keep it as a sacred gift for yourself, and see if you can apply it in your own life. What I also want you, so I said before, it's very scientific. I can convey it. It's learnable, which is wonderful. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. And I may haven't mentioned that that I used to be a lawyer in Germany, and I was very, very versed in working structured, and I have tried my best to do the same here with the training, obviously. However, it is not academic, the work. The work is not, and it's not intuitive neither. And you will learn and you will understand what I mean with this over the course of the next 1.5 years. For now, all I would like you to do is that you try to get as much out of your head as you can. Yes, of course, you want to process information. That's great. That's why how you learn, right? But because you have the video recordings, it is much better when we are in the Zoom call together that you more listen and feel. You might take occasional notes of something very specific that kind of resonates with you. And you might gather questions as well and see if they are answered over the course of the next 3 hours before you ask them. To let just the flow happen. The flow is important. The flow of information, the flow of energy, this connecting with the information is important, and the learning of details you can always do when you watch the recording. And the good thing is about our regular meetings online. We have every month a meeting, only trainees. It's called the practice workshop and the training calls. It's in one meeting. And you can ask me anything, also about what you have seen on the recordings if you don't understand something or if you don't know the context about it. So we will always be in communication about it. Yeah. So try to calm down your mind, especially the curious mind, and let information sink in before you ask questions. Yeah. So you're not coming too much into your mind. You stay in your heart space where you resonate with the information. I would extremely recommend, if you haven't done so yet, that you dedicate a specific notebook only to this course. Make it a nice notebook with a nice cover, or make some drawings in it and make it your own, something creative that is only for this course. Because you will find yourself, like I found myself over many, many years, referring back to this notebook in 10 years and 20 years. Yeah. And that is, it is only you know how to use it. Only you know how to find the information. But as soon as you see the information that you have written down there yourself, you know exactly what it means. Yeah. This is also why I'm not giving out a complete handbook about the course material or the slides or anything like this, because the learning process goes through the heart. Yeah. You have to digest the information there. If they're only stuck in the head, that's not good enough. You cannot facilitate with your head, and we will go through that later. But when you're facilitating, you are not in your head. Yes, you have the information, but you are not referring to all the information because you need to connect to the morphogenetic field. And you need only to receive the information necessary to work with a client or with a group that the morphogenetic field is revealing to you. If you would think about everything you've learned and what you see and how to put that all into this context, then you cannot connect to the morphogenetic field. And it's kind of the work of facilitators to exactly do that. So learn how to listen from your heart, make notes, yes, definitely, but only brief sentences. You can repeat the video recordings. You can make more, you can write more into your notebook while you're watching the video recordings, and keep your heart open and listen and feel and gather questions when we are together. Yeah. I also have a list of books. Maybe you have already looked at it. That's a document that I sent you. It's also on the community training website where you can download it. And you can start at any time reading. Reading is great. Yeah. Because, but only for now, only originals from Bert Hellinger. No secondary literature. Yeah. Of course, translated into English in your case, or Spanish, Virna, or German. Evelyn is even better. Bert Hellinger has written over 50 books in German. And I haven't counted it, but I would say probably 15 are translated to English, but probably about 30 are translated into Spanish because he has a big community in South America and in Spain. So there's actually an advantage for you who are not German. If you're German, read it in German is of course much better than any translation. And then when you need to read a translation, read it, if you can get hold of it, read it in your mother tongue. Why only originals about Bert Hellinger? Is because we want to understand, immerse, and open our heart to his orders of love. Yeah. And when others are writing about the orders of love, then it's of course we are opening our heart to this author, right? But Bert Hellinger is kind of he lives in these books. Yeah, he has a very unique way to talk and to write. It's a very unusual also, and this is important that becomes for you natural to listen and to understand that, because then you're immersing in this energy and you will also use it in your work later on, and it has a much deeper impact. As if you would read about him and about what he said. Yeah. So, all right, here we go. Are you ready for your first module? The orders of love. In part 1, that is today, we learn about the first order of love. It's the order of belonging. And we also learn about destiny, conscience, and guilt. Tomorrow, we look at part 2. That is the second order of love. And it's simply who comes first. And then on Sunday, we meet again for the part 3, where we talk about the third order of love. And that is the order of balancing, of giving and taking. So for today, we look at the first order of love. That is belonging, and then destiny, conscience, and guilt. First of all, we look into family systems and define what is a system. Then we look at belonging and who belongs to a family system. We will also go deeper into the various consciences that Bert Hellinger has developed. It is he has I'm not quite sure if he has books on it, but he is focusing in his work and also in some of his books, definitely in his teachings, very much on the conscience. So I want to convey that to you early in the course. There is the personal, the collective, and the spiritual conscience, and we will look at the difference. Then we will also touch on destiny, common destiny, and free choice. And finally, very important, we will talk about guilt and fear. Yeah, guilt and fear are the driving forces for our lives, and unfortunately not into higher frequencies of life, love and light, but into the lower realms. And that is where our clients and the family systems are normally stuck. So we want to help them out, show them a way out. All right. First one. Yes, Evelyn?
I'm just wondering, is it best for us to write all this down? No, we will.
It's all on the video recording. So what is best to do is you wait and you listen and you just observe and observe, I want to say, the information. And then when something really resonates with you, then you make a quick note in your notebook. And then you watch the video recordings, and then you can stop and you can contemplate on it. And then you can, make longer sentences in your notebook. And then you can rewatch it, and then you can go back a few minutes and so take your time for studying with the video recording. Yeah. So don't, if you are writing while I'm talking, it's kind of, it doesn't really start to resonate with you. You are busy in your mind writing, but I would like you to be open and resonate with the information. Yeah. Okay. Good. So family system. And as I said before, when you are rewatching the video calls, you can always do screenshots. You don't need to even write it down in your notebook. You can just glue it into your notebook if something, if you want an information, to conserve it in your notebook. So first of all, what is a family system? We have to define what is a system. So a system is so before we have a system, we have fields. There are fields for everything, fields of energy, fields of information. Yeah, and you might remember that you have learned in physics that everything, since we know that since quantum physics was discovered, everything is either information or energy. Yeah, matter as such doesn't exist. It is kind of like an illusion, if you will, yeah, perception. So there are energy fields, and you all work in the healing business too. You know what I'm talking about. There's an energy field around a person, an energy field around a city, an energy field around families, of course, yeah. But these fields, they have no information. They are not organized. They are just there. That's field. Now, if these fields, and they are chaotic in nature, it's like proton and neutron, they are going back and forth, and they do their thing, and doesn't make much sense. When these fields get organized with a system, or otherwise, when there is a structure, let's put it that way, that is organizing these fields, then we have a system. The system is something that has an order. It's not chaotic. A family has fields, many, many, many fields. And if there is no structure in a family, like let's say the families are very emotional, and they have no values they can refer to, then there's a lot of chaos in these families. And I'm sure you know an example of these kind of families, yeah, where nobody really knows what to do and has a place, and it's all very random what's happening, right? And then there are very strict organized families. They're probably adhering to a strong religious belief. That's the opposite, right? There is only order. There is no room for individualism at all. Yeah, and that is where you go from chaotic fields into organized systems. A family system is organized through the orders of love. So the orders of love is nothing that you need to apply. It is there. It's innate in a family system. They are organized as a system applying the orders of love, but nobody knows about it. Yeah, and it's not necessary that they know it. It's like water flows down. Nobody needs to know anything about it. It's just what it is. Yeah. So the family system tries to organize the family with rules and regulations. We call that the orders of love by Bert Hellinger. And when these orders of love are not obeyed, when there is a breach, then there is what we call an issue that can be from mild to severe, and it's in the system. So it is not in an individual. An individual feels it, but the disorder is in the system. So everyone who's part of the system feels it to a certain extent, feels under it or not, but it is there for everyone. And this is why the healing mythology that is bringing order to a family system is so deep, because it goes to the root cause of what brought disorder. And it brings about this relief to practically every member of the family system. And we will see later how many these are. So when we talk about the ripple effect, this is an outstanding work that we all do in literally in service to humanity. We need to know, of course, when we talk about order and systems, who belongs to a family system, who belongs to this order, who belongs to a system. Yeah. And that is a very important information that you learn today. And you will hear me saying that a lot, especially in the practice workshops, yeah, that the first step is when you work with yourself, with a client, with a friend, is to find out who belongs to the family system and only work with these members of the family system. Because if we would work with others that are not members of the family system, we are not working with the orders of love, and we are literally not doing a family constellation. It's more, it's a therapy, however you would call it. And the importance you will see over the course of the next 3 modules, what happens or what happens when you apply the orders of love and what happens when you don't apply the orders of love. So this is why the first order of love means finding out who belongs to the family system. You might think, well, there must be always the same, but the fact is, and you will see why soon, that every individual has an individual family system. You have not the same family system as your sibling, for example. Yeah. And definitely not the same family system as your mother or father, because it is not the same as family. When we talk about family system and family constellation, we are not talking about the classical family that everybody else is talking about. This is why we use the term family system and not just family. So we are working not with families, we are working with the family system. Oh, why am I jumping ahead? Let me just find that out. I said that before, just now, family systems we in family constellation, we only work with family systems, not the families. So the family system, when we go through belonging, you will see belong not only blood related members of the family. There are other individuals, or let's say souls, who have or had a deep impact on the family and therefore become part of the family system. So belonging is also called the order of inclusion. The first order of love is the order of inclusion. And all we need to find out is, and that's always the same, the first step of every family constellation in the method of Bert Hellinger is who belongs to this client's family system. First of all, family member belong, or certain family member belong to the family system through bloodline. Through bloodline, because through the bloodline there is an epigenetic inheritance of traumas. And that is what we actually see in family constitutions and what we can hear. A trauma that has happened in the former generation is passed on as information through epigenetic inheritance. Interestingly, I think 10 years ago or so, there was a big hype because science has found out that trauma is passed on through the generations through epigenetic damage. And family constellation facilitated, yeah, we know that because we see it all the time. That is not a news, but for the rest of the world, it was big news. You may remember that in the 1990s and in 2000, there was all this billions and billions and billions of money and investments thrown at genetic science, right, to find out which genes are responsible for what. And then this all had to be washed down the drain, literally, because it has found out, no, it's not the gene, it's the epigenetic that is deciding if a gene is turned on or off, and a gene that is turned off does nothing. Let's say a gene for a disease, whatever, a disease, yeah. Everybody can have that, and just a few of them ever get ill or sick from it, right? The rest not. Why? It's not in the genes, because there's the epigenetics, which is literally set on top of genes, epigenetic, Latin, that decides if a gene is active or not. And this epigenetics, they are relating to the environment. So the environment is much more important than the genes. And we have found out, or we know that anyhow, but the scientists have found out that a trauma that is happening in one generation, and we're talking about emotional trauma, like war trauma, for example, yeah, is causing an epigenetic damage in this person who has the trauma. And this epigenetic damage is passed on to the next generation. And that is just the beginning of a long journey of this trauma to a generation, to a descendant who is willing to look at it and hopefully finds family constellation, because there we can show where the origin is of this epigenetic damage, aka the trauma, and heal it there. We also find family system members through destiny. And here we often see relationships, yeah, husbands, wives, partners, many years together, sometimes not even that long, yeah. But destiny brings them together. And they definitely, so they're not blood related, but the strongest bond is formed and of interest for the family system when they have a child. So when they have a mutual child, doesn't matter if they're married or not, it doesn't matter how the child comes to pass, it can also be a rape, by the way. Yeah. When they have a mutual child, that means that the family system has a new descendant. Yeah, all the hopes on this new descendant to heal family wounds. And this is from utmost importance for the family system. Yeah, that life is passed on and it exists, and it doesn't matter which circumstances are. That doesn't matter, right? So in order for this new life to exist and to pass on epigenetic damage even, you need two persons who are not blood related, not closely. And therefore, the other partner who is not part of the blood related family becomes a member of the family system through destiny, because it's their destiny that they come together. Sometimes they are also part of the family system through destiny when they don't have a child. We're not going into details here. That's just very general here to give you a first information. Former partners are also part of a family system. Former partners, even if there's no child, no mutual child, because, and this is often overlooked later when one starts to work, so then remember these words, because they make space for the current partner. And the current partner and the parent, they have a child together, and this child would not exist without the former partner making space. And this former partner has a deep impact on the family because it allows to have this newborn child, whatever it is, and we're talking about many, many generations back as well. So the former partner is also part of a family system. No? Adopting parents, for example, that's a speciality, but we will talk about that, of course, because that happens a lot. Yeah, adopted parents are normally not part of a family system. The child still belongs to the family system of the bloodline because it got the epigenetic damage from that bloodline. However, when the adopting parents have, under outstanding circumstances, supported the life of the child other than just feeding them, they also become part of the family system through destiny. Then we have, and I was quickly mentioning that before, the victim-perpetrator relationship. The victim and the perpetrator forming through this act of violence a relationship involuntarily. Maybe you can also look at it as destiny, yeah. And through this relationship, they belong to the same family system, meaning the perpetrator becomes part of the victim's family system and the victim becomes part of the perpetrator's family system. And that was the very controversial fact that when Bert Hellinger started to understand that and share it, that he has been fought for a lot now, because society doesn't want to see that. They always want to divide victim and perpetrator and make sure there is no relationship, but it is on a soul level, it is not the case. The milder, so when we say victim perpetrator, it's normally always death. Yeah. So one took somebody else's life. That is the depth of act of violence that we see in family constellation that is causing this trauma that in turn causes an epigenetic damage. However, there are circumstances where there is no life taken, and that is what we call advantage and disadvantage giver and receiver relationship. It's a milder form of victim and perpetrator. Here, not somebody's life has been taken, but let's say somebody's foundations of life, and it's often a family home or land or inheritance or something material that to lose is life-threatening. Yeah, and that is also causing a trauma that is then in turn causes an epigenetic damage that is inherited, and descendants will start to suffer some issues that are, when we do a family constellation, made visible as an advantage-disadvantage relationship, a given relationship. Then we always have to think of or to notice in a family constellation that not only the children the client is talking about are part of the family system, but every single soul that has been born or conceived. Yeah. So we have a lot of suffering in the world and a lot of cases in family constellation where the basis of a trauma is a lost child. A child that is not born because it's lost, like it could either be aborted or they have miscarried it, or they have given it away but at birth to somebody else, and so on. These children are all part of the family system, even if the family has no knowledge of them, because we are talking about these cases in former generations. It could be in generation 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So your client does not know anything about it. And this is why this issue was never healed. In family constellation, we are able to make it visible with the help of representatives and allow that what is needed to heal to happen to the souls who are involved, and that is freeing the like a ripple effect all the generations that came after this traumatic experience with the lost child. So children are part. Every child is part of the family system, even if it wasn't born. That's a take-home message here. The forgotten or dismissed members of a family are part of a family system. Dismissed because, well, I don't know, they had, we had that in the Christchurch workshop, by the way, Evelyn, when Daniel was representing this child and he had made this, remember, this movement, that was most likely a dismissed child because of some disabilities it was born with. And that is often in not so much this days, no, but in 3-4 generations before us, or 5 or 6, that was for some families was unbearable. Yeah, and if some kill this child or others give it away, it has the same impact on the family soul. Yeah, the child has not its rightful place in the family, and we call them the forgotten or dismissed children. And then, of course, don't forget, we are working not with the dead, but the souls are always present if the physical body is passed away or not. And we are working also with those who have died. Right? That is the majority, actually, in family constellation. You don't see only mother, father, child of the existing family. That would be just family therapy. We are looking at everyone who belongs to family system, and most of them are long dead, yeah, long passed away. So for us, as a family constellation facilitator, that is normal to work with these who are long passed on. So now we go into more detail who belongs to the family system. First of all, we start with the blood relationship. Family members that are related by blood in direct line belong to a family system in 7 generations. A direct line is mother and father. That's it. That's a direct line. So there's a child, then the child has mother and father, and then the father has mother and father, and the mother has mother and father, and so on. Yeah. So all these mothers and fathers, which are grandparents, great-grandparents, and so forth, they belong through blood in direct line to the family system of this child we are talking about, and we normally include 7 generations. Very occasionally, there are more than 7 generations that needed to be looked at, but it's really the exemption. You barely see that. I, in fact, had it just a few times in my whole life, over 20 years. So it is safe to focus on 7 generations. Yeah. Secondly, partners and former partners belong to the family system, but only in 2, maybe 3 generations. That's it. Not 4, 5, 6, or 7. So let's make an example. The former partner of your grandfather belongs to your family system. Yeah. And I'm sure you have never heard of him or her. And that's okay. Because if this is the cause of a suffering that comes up in the family constellation, we will see it. And then this when we can solve it. The former or the partner of your great grandfather, no, how can I say, the former partner of your great-great-grandfather doesn't belong to the family system, even though you might have heard about it. And it might be a big story. There was something going on there. Whatever it is, I can't think of anything at the moment. Maybe somebody saying, "Oh, the wife of my great grandfather was an evil woman. She has murdered many people." You know, these stories, they are passed on through generations, and of course, be very careful to believe any of these stories. But what you know for sure, you don't know whether there were lots of more, but what you know for sure that because this woman doesn't belong to the family system of the client, whatever she has done has no impact. So this is not the cause of the suffering. And now you know why it's so important to know who belongs to a family system and why you cannot work with souls who don't belong. It has no impact on the family system, and healing is not possible. Although the story seems to be so shocking and so obvious that there must be an impact on the family system, but no, if it's not a member of the family system, it won't. Because the family soul of this family system is not in any way, shape, or form touched by what this person ever has done. Yeah. And therefore also not the descendant. So please remember, mark my words, and keep that as the most important information of today. Only find out who belongs to the family system first, by the order of love, the first order of love, and only work with the souls who are part of the family system of the client, and do not buy into stories the family is passing down and thinking there is an exemption. There is not. Siblings, half siblings are also part, of course, of the family system, but also only in 2 and maybe in 3 generations. So the first generation is the client. The client's siblings, of course, belong to his family system. Yeah. Then there are the parents. That's the second generation. Yes, the siblings of the parents also affect the family system of the client. And then there are the grandparents, and the grandparents have siblings. Now, this is already very questionable if whatever they have done would affect the client. Most likely not. Most likely not, but it can be. Yeah? So we're not looking away, but if we have like the brother of the great-great-grandparent, yeah, who was, let's not do the evil example, yeah, well, we have to, who was maybe in the war and maybe killed many people. He may was an officer and sent many of his soldiers into death, yeah. It's all tragic, but not for the client's soul, because they would not have inherited this trauma in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, because it was the brother of his great grandparent, and that is safe to say they don't belong to the family system. So whatever they have done, no impact. Interestingly, and that is also part of our work, is to be like a detective. Yeah, you have to find out what the client is saying, what is important for a family constellation, and what not. And most of the stories you hear from the client are either not true or they are of no importance for the constellation, for the family system. That is very interesting. So you will develop a sense through observation, which I will train you in, to find out what is going on behind the words that you hear from your client. And that is where you need the help of the morphogenetic field of the family system. And it will be there to guide you, 100%. So I repeat, siblings and half siblings, meaning you share only one blood relationship with either father or mother, belong to the client's family system in 2, maybe 3 generations only, not beyond. Now, what is true for the partners, former partners, and siblings is not true for victim and perpetrator relationship. A victim and perpetrator always belong to the other family system and throughout all generations. So we have to look as far back as 7 generations if there is an epigenetic inheritance of trauma that is the result of a unresolved victim and perpetrator conflict, a relationship way back 5, 6, 7 generations. And this makes the family system quite complex and large. And then the same goes for the advantage-disadvantage giver. That goes also back in 7 generations. In fact, you really don't need to decipher. We can all call that victim and perpetrator relationship. It's all following the same order, the same dynamic. I only want you to be aware that when we're looking at these traumatic experiences that are the source of the issue of the client, that it is always to do with life and death. And if it costs somebody's life, it is a victim and perpetrator relationship. And if it was a perceived death, which didn't end up in physical death, then it is an advantage-disadvantage giver relationship. So there's really not a big need to decipher between these two. They follow the same rules, only that you know that these 2 cases are possible. Nothing lesser. Just because somebody had a hard life, that doesn't make a trauma. Not such a trauma that it causes an epigenetic damage. So I repeat, belonging can be through blood, destiny, partner, especially and former partner, and action, victim and perpetrator relationship, the act of taking somebody's life. Blood, destiny, and action, 3 possibilities. And you will see throughout the course that number 3 is really magic, because we will always, pretty much every time, have only to memorize 3 options. It is really simple. We can all count to 3, and there are 3 orders of love, and 3 words that we use, and so on, and so 3 dynamics. You will see it's quite magic. It always comes down to the 3. And you might know, if you like numbers and you like numerology, that 3 is also the creative number, the divine number, and that's what will follow us throughout the course as well. Blood, destiny, action, that's it. There is no other way to belong to somebody's family system. Let's look at the victim-perpetrator relationship and the epigenetic damage that can come out of there a little bit closer. So I'm from Germany, as Evelyn is, and I have been in many family constellations with Bert Hellinger and Sophie Hellinger, his wife, his second wife, with whom he worked together. And it was a rule almost that in every second or third of this family constellation, we looked at the war scene from the second, sometimes from the First World War. That was just what in Germany was. Every family had a victim or a perpetrator in, back 7 generations of one or both of these world wars. And they and that was unavoidable. So this is why I do like to use this example of the world wars to convey this, first of all, trauma and the epigenetic damage, and then also how this relationship is formed. So now imagine in the First World War, 1914 to 1918, yeah, there is a young soldier, let's say a German, and he goes to war, and he's ending up in Southwest Africa, and he has to kill lots and lots and lots and lots of, let's say, indigenous people there. Yeah, this is a trauma for the soldier, not only for the victims. Also for the soldier. And he comes back and he has this trauma from having killed people. And it doesn't matter that it was legal, and maybe he's even a war hero, and maybe even he's getting rewards. That for the soul makes no difference. Yeah, the soul suffers under the fact taking others' lives. Now, this epigenetic damage, which is caused, let's say he has a son. When he comes back, he has a son. Is inherited by the son. And now the son is not like, he's not haunted by dreams about battlefields and blood, and so that's not necessarily the case. Yeah? But they may have a allergy to cats. This is so unrelated that logic doesn't help. Nobody finds that out through logic. Now he has this allergy to cats, and he's growing up, and 30 years later, he's been called into the war as well, into the Second World War. Now he goes to Russia and has to kill a lot of other young men there who are in the way of this intrusion of whatever happens there, Stalingrad. Now, let's assume that he survives and he comes home and he's suffering under this war trauma, right? So he still has his cat allergy, but now he has his own trauma. And let's imagine he meets somebody and he has also a son. And we are now in the 1950s or whatnot, and this son grows up. He doesn't have a cat allergy. He doesn't have dreams about wars and blood everywhere and so no. But he may have a dermatitis, yeah? A severe dermatitis, itchy skin, from the moment he was born. And nobody can help. Creams may make it milder, maybe even some healing modalities make it to vanish, but it comes back, always there. It's just there in the face. Something is not in order. There is no recollection of these two war traumas of his father and his grandfather. They may have never mentioned anything, yeah, nothing. And that's not even this now. This our third generation man marries, has also children. Now these children hear nothing from the grandparents or great-grandparents, nothing, yeah. But there is maybe one who has anything. What can it be? It could be really absolutely anything. No success, for example, with in life. Yeah, it's whatever they do, they fail. Whatever they touch, nothing is successful. Nothing. They always struggle. Maybe they always make the wrong choices, and they don't know why. And this generation comes to a family constellation because they have a good friend who has done it before and has recommended it. Yeah? And in this family constellation, to his utter surprise, and they will only mention that they don't know why, they cannot be successful, they tried everything, they tried so hard. And in this family constellation, through the help of the representative, and you as a facilitator who connects the morphogenetic field, gets the information about these two world wars and all the victims that have been left behind. And what happened is that the victims have been dismissed by the perpetrator. They didn't want to look at it. And that's what you see in a family constellation. The representatives will accurately report and give you and act that they don't want to look at them. And here is what the trauma is causing, is this disconnecting between victim and perpetrator. And through this healing step of coming together and acknowledging that there's only a victim with a perpetrator and a perpetrator with a victim, they need to be together to be whole, that is bringing relief to the client. Because now this original trauma is healed on a soul level, of course, right? We are not raising anybody from the death, right? Logically. It's just on a soul level, they are connected and the love of flow is present. And then this client will experience more happiness and freedom in their life, and they will start to be more successful. And if his father who was with the cat allergy, his grandfather, if his grandfather would have went to a family constellation, because he suffers so much under his cat allergy, and this trauma that he went through would show with the victims from the First World War, his descendants wouldn't have dermatitis or unsuccess in life. They would already have lived a free and happy life. But the good news is it's never too late. It doesn't matter in which generation healing occurs. It always goes back at least 7 generations. So victim and perpetrator are bound together. We can say destiny, but first of all through the act of violence. The perpetrator is opposing an act of violence, mainly taking somebody's life onto the victim, and that's what bound them together. However, they can also be bound together by destiny, because you can argue it was destined that they meet each other. It was already preconcepted that they become a victim and perpetrator. But that brings us to free choice and all the other philosophical questions we may touch on later today. The entanglement, we call it an entanglement when we say relationship in family constellation that is causing somebody to suffer for somebody else. Now that's an entanglement. Is created by this feeling that the perpetrator or the victim or both often have of guilt and shame. Normally, the perpetrator feels guilt and the victim feels shame. And that is a strong feeling that is forming a relationship that is the relationship denied. And that is causing the trauma that the family suffers under. Of course, only love will heal. That's what you see in family constellation. When this movement, when these two representatives move together and allow the relationship and allow the bond, then the love can flow, and that will heal not only their souls but also the descendants. Oh, there was one. Why is this so quickly? Where's this one? Hang on. What's this here? No, it was here. They had that. Yeah. They belong together. That is literal. In a family constellation, that is the literal word that we use. And that is the healing step. And that was why Bert Hellinger was so hated for when he discovered that. The power of the love flow between victim and perpetrator, because they belong together, was utterly dismissed by society, even by psychotherapists. They were very proud that they have developed a system to shut the perpetrator completely out of the victim's life and realm, and that is on a soul level not healing, because they do on a soul level belong together. That doesn't mean that they need to physically meet ever. Yeah, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the soul movement and to allow that and not to shy away from it because society thinks that is bad. Because family constellation shows us that that is the only healing step that can be taken. The same goes for advantage and disadvantage giver. I'm not going through the steps, but I give you an example what that is. Yeah. So in advantage, let's go back to Germany and the Second World War. You might know that the Jewish community has been greatly robbed of their belongings, their houses, their businesses, their everything they had. Yeah, by the Nazis in 1930s and beginning of 1940s in Germany. And so what has happened that the whatever officers of the SS, they just took the house, they took the money, they sent them off into a concentration camp, or they allowed them to immigrate, but without any money. And they took it all and they gave it to their own party members or something, and they didn't pay for it. Yeah, so they just got it for free, if you will. Yeah. Now this hasn't caused, let's say an example, there's a Jewish family in Hamburg, and they had to go because they were able to go early enough to the US to flee, but they couldn't take anything with them because that has already been taken by the Nazis. Yeah. Now this forms a kind of a victim-perpetrator relationship where nobody died because they managed to survive in America and found their foot and make a living, but they were deeply traumatized because they thought when everything has been taken from them, they cannot survive. They literally don't know how to feed their children. Yeah. And this perceived death has the same impact on the soul, on the family soul, as if somebody dies. And this is why we have the same dynamic here, that there is a victim-perpetrator dynamic and they belong together and they need to be together on a soul level. Yeah, although you can imagine if you would talk about that to a friend or your family at the dinner table, they would think you are crazy. Yeah, this is why it is so important to keep your mouth shut until you know how to talk about it in a convincing way that you are not causing like a bit upheaval underneath amongst your friends and family. So it's all the same. So here I have before we go on our break, I have a little animation for you to visualize the first order of love, the order of inclusion, aka who belongs to the family system. It all starts with you. This is you. Gender neutral, hopefully. And it is the first generation. So you or your client is the first generation. Then very obvious, the second generation is father and mother, their parents. That's easy. That's nothing new about that. Then we have the third generation, which are the parents of the parents, mother and father of the father and mother and father of the mother. And we call them our grandparents. Now the grandparents also have each a mother and a father, right? So these are our great-grandparents and they belong in direct bloodline to the family system of our Black person here. Now the generations 5 to 7, we don't count, we count them as one. This is ancestors in our terminology. Yeah, but if you multiply, like I did the math once, you come to 240 direct blood-related family members in the family system. That's a lot already, right? And they're only mothers and fathers. That's it. Only mothers and fathers, no cousins, no other relatives, only mothers and fathers. And then to the family system, we also always count the source or God, if you will, or in whatever context you put that together, the beginning of life, no? Because life comes from somewhere. It starts somewhere. There is a spark somewhere. And that is also sometimes important to include into a family constellation under quite special circumstances. But it happens, so don't forget it. The source belongs to each family system. The source is, of course, the same for everyone, right? That's not an individual source. Now, it becomes a little bit more complicated. We have the yellow here. These are our siblings. That could be male or female, and they belong to you, first generation. Your siblings belong to your family system. They belong in second generation. Your parents' siblings belong to your family system, and maybe also your grandparents' siblings. Is that a great grand uncle? No, it's the grand uncle, isn't it? The uncle is the parents' sibling, and then the great. What do you say in English? Great and uncle? No. Is that term, Laura?
Your great uncle is your grandparents' siblings.
So there's a great uncle, a grand uncle.
No, great. They call them great uncles and great aunts.
So that's what I'm talking about. Excellent. So great uncles and great aunts. These are the yellows, and they can belong to the family system of the black guy, but they don't need necessarily. A family constellation will reveal that. However, beyond this, no. There are no great uncles or great aunties or anything like this. Why? Imagine how large the family system would, when already the direct blood related are 240. And now you multiply that with all the siblings, and many people have 6, 8 siblings. You know, what happens here is, coming back to where we started, it's not organized anymore. It's impossible to organize this, and it doesn't form a system. Yeah, it becomes chaotic again. Yeah. Too many family members, structure gets loose, and then healing, or, well, in our method, family constellation method, the orders of love cannot be applied anymore. We know that not because somebody thought about that. We know that because Bert Helling has observed that in his 40 years of developing and working with family constellations. And I can say with great conviction, it is so, because I see it too. When I see not members of a family system, let's say somebody, the client talks about the sister of a great grandparent and what significant the sister's life had, yeah, and I did that in early days when I was learning, and I had a representative up there. They had no impact. They had no impact on the family system. It is very interesting. So this is why we come back to the fact we only work with the members of the family system that we know, due to the orders of love as developed by Bert Hellinger, certainly belong to the family system. So we have these are the yellow guys, and now we add the green ones. The green ones are the former partners. And like the siblings, the former partners belong only to the family system of the black guy here, that is you or your client, in 3 generations max. So the client's former partner belong, the former partner of the parents belong, and maybe the former partner of the great grandparents, the grandparents, but not further away. Again, it would completely outnumber everybody else if they would also be counted then in other generations, and it would become quite chaotic for the family system to deal with it, if you will. And then we have the red. guys. This is our perpetrator and or disadvantage giver, right? They now, however, go through all generations. And now you know why everyone has its own family system, right? Because they can be perpetrators and they can be perpetrators or victims from different, like you, like say it's you and you have a brother, right? And the brother obviously lives a different life, and the brother can do things that you don't do, right? So he is forming a relationship with the victim because whatever he's doing to somebody else, maybe taking somebody else's life, yeah, has nothing to do with you in as such. When you are looking from the perspective of a descendant of your 4 generations back, yeah? No, but now that there is a victim and a perpetrator that belongs to the family system, then it will ripple back to any descendant that comes after him. Yeah, so that is his family system, but not yours. That is important to understand. More important is to understand when you are working with children of clients, because the children of the clients, they have a different family system to the client. And we will go into that in more details later. In this course, you can always choose, and you have to choose, for whom is a constellation. Is this for the client, or are they talking about an issue with their child? Then you either constellate for the client or for the child, because the child has a different family system to the client. And you would know with which family members you're going to work if you would know for whom you are constellating. Yeah? Or who is constellating, for whom you are facilitating. So we always come back, that's the very basic of our work is to find out for whom are we facilitating a family constellation and who belongs to their family system. And then we have, of course, the victims in gray, same rule. They belong through all generations to a specific family system. Then, here's our journey. Our guy goes through all generations, through family constellation, all the way back into his ancestral line, all the way to the source sometimes. And as you can see by the color, changes into higher frequencies because healing has occurred through all the generations, and there's more freedom and happiness for him or her to go forward and leave it behind. That's what we do. And that's what we also want to go through, to find lasting happiness. So, that was my little animation to make it a little bit more clear. I hope that has helped. We go in a break now, 10 minutes. If you have a question, happy to discuss them when we come back from our break. We are all in the same time zone. That's very unusual that I can say we meet again at 10 to 8. And you're welcome to turn your video and your mic off, but please do not leave the Zoom call. Yeah, just stay in the Zoom call. See you in 10. So, any questions to what we have been going through right now? The first order of love, belonging. Nothing present? Pressing? Good. Okay, then we continue with the lost children. Alberna, yeah?
Yes, so you said something about the victim perpetrator. It comes to be just the victim perpetrator, they belong together when
someone dies, when it's killed only.
Yeah.
So the person who was abused, they don't belong together.
Okay. So when we have a case of abuse, it is not a trauma that is carried on as an epigenetic damage normally. However, most of the abuse cases, or many of the abuse cases, are within a family, yeah, within a blood-related family, and they, of course, are already part of the same family system. So when we talk about the first order of love, all we are interested in, who belongs to the family system, yeah, either blood, destiny, or action. It is not yet to determine what needs to be healed. Yeah, that's not what we are interested in when we look at the first order of love. It's just the first step, who belongs. Yeah. So in order to know what happens in cases of abuse, if they belong, abuser and abused, to a family system, then yes, they form a same family system, and yes, that can have an impact. But because somebody abuses somebody from another family system doesn't make them, the other one, a member of their family system. Yeah. Okay.
Say that again. Just because someone abuses
somebody else from another family system doesn't make this abused person to become a family member of this system. Yeah. Right. So that means that they are in a family constellation that wouldn't show. Right.
Oh,
That's all we need to know. It wouldn't show, and we wouldn't work with this. Even when the client says, let's make an example. The client says in the briefing, reveals, oh God, what could it be? Yeah,
I give an example. My brother was abused. And
my brother was abused apparently once on the holidays by a servant of the hotel. Yeah. Then you are not consolating the brother and the servant of the hotel, because the servant of the hotel, I'm just saying, just making that up, yeah, the service person, whoever that was, doesn't belong to the client's family system. Yeah, understood? And that's all we need to know when we work with family constellation. Yes.
Question. But if the servant at the hotel had murdered the brother,
then yes,
he'd be in the family system.
Yes.
So by abusing the boy is not a part of the family by action. It's only action by killing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So that's really important to understand. There are lots and lots and lots and lots of traumatic experiences a person can endure, yeah, but they are not forming in a trauma that is that has a potential to be passed on to the next generation through epigenetic damage. Yeah.
And,
right?
and we know this by trying to constellate that kind of situation, and it doesn't work.
Exactly. It doesn't yield any result. And that is when we are in the realm of role play or therapy. Yeah. When you are a therapist and there is a story, you would probably use, I don't know, figurines or whatever you use to put all these people the client is talking about, yeah, to place them and let the client move them around so the client can get clarity or whatever. Yeah, that's all possible, but it's not a family constellation. Yeah, a family constellation is revealing a trauma that is passed down through generations to the current generation because of an epigenetic damage. In a nutshell. Yeah. Okay.
Are the
Evelyn.
siblings former partners part of the constellation?
No,
Of
you
the
can
families?
answer. You can answer this question yourself.
No, right?
Let's have a look at the chart here. Hang on, how do I do that? Okay. What did you say? There's a client that's
Siblings.
black. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the black guy. That's the client. The siblings are yellow here. Yeah. And what did you say?
The former partners of the
Yeah.
siblings.
No. Right? Because only the former partners of the client or the generation above, which is the parents, is part of the family system. Good question. See, this is good. I love this because you need to inquire into this from the start, yeah, to make sure that you get it. It's a really important basic foundational step for every family constellation.
So if anything would happen with any former partners of brothers or sisters, then that's not going to be constellated for
No.
the client.
No.
Oh.
But it is interesting, why do they mention that, right? Because I normally want to deviate or make a detour from their own issue. That's often the client, what they are saying, and I'm sure you have in your own work noticed that repeatedly, is not what they, it's not what the sources of their uncomfortable or their issue are. It's often just in the mind, stories they heard, stories they may still believe in, but not what it's really about. Because they don't know it anyhow. They don't know it because otherwise they wouldn't be there. They would solve it if they would know, but they don't know. Yes,
Can be mixed up.
Sorry?
Oh, sorry.
No,
Sorry,
you go, Evelyn.
continue.
I thought it can easily be mixed up, the sort of the family system, or maybe karmic, or any other entanglements of a spiritual kind, or of some other ways, can be easily mixed up as being part of it, right?
Yeah, very, very easy. And now you know why I'm really so passionate about conveying the orders of love and the importance of it. Because obviously, if you think family constellation is just family therapy equals family therapy, just working with the people the client has relationship issues with, and then we never go into intergenerational trauma.
But what about when people do family constellations in businesses and things like that?
Yeah, we will learn that also in module 4. I'll just give you a brief snippet. Yes, we work with organizations that are not families, but we know as a facilitator that are knowledgeable and experienced with family constellation and the method of Bert Hellinger, that you're always looking at the family system. But you don't need to share that with the client. The healing takes place on the level of the family system. But you can look at any system for your client. And they would, they wouldn't know that whatever the boss is the father, and the client, the customers of the business is the mother and stuff, or the grandmother or something. They wouldn't know that. You would not necessarily share that, but you would know it. And you are always working with the family system, with the first order of love who belongs, with the second order of love, and then with the third order of love.
So you translate that system exactly into that when you see the dynamics going on between the people, you sort of intuitively know, okay, this is what's playing out here.
Exactly. Yeah. You see that with your trained eyes, you see that but you don't need to share it with the client because that's a whole other dimension. You can if you have, if the client is capable of of fathom that, yeah, but it's not necessary for the healing. It's not necessary. No, it's just happening. Great question. Good. Katharina, you had a question.
Yeah, I had a question with, for example, with the trauma and abuse. For example, if my grandma would be abused, but we can still see that this is trauma in the family system, but not who done it, right? We will still see the trauma.
Okay, so we are here at your grandparents' area, yeah?
Yes.
And we are now talking about, let's say, here's your grandmother, the blue, yeah? The blue woman. And here is a red person, that's the perpetrator of the grandmother, yeah? We are only talking about perpetrators when they take the life. So the perpetrator must have killed the grandmother in the wake of the abuse, or the grandmother took her life because she couldn't live with the abuse or something like that. Yeah. Other than that, it's not causing this deep trauma.
Okay.
It's causing an inherited epigenetic failure. Yeah. So that's what it boils down to.
Okay, thank you.
I was seeing that right then, that the victim advantage, Eva, is that then only on the that's not only on the male side, is it? Because that's
Nah, that's random. No, sorry. That is a bit that's random. Yeah. No, that can all be both genders. Oh, that reminds me of something I really wanted to tell you that I haven't. Nowadays we need to be careful with genders and gendering and in being inclusive and embracing. There's this term that I this long whatever. That's all fine. That's all good. You can have an opinion to it or not. That doesn't change. But for family constellations, we have always a defined gender. It's either male or female. That's very important because this is how life comes to pass. There is an egg and there's a sperm, and they need to meet. Otherwise, there is no new life, right? And that is what the family system is concerned with. So it's always the male who has the sperm and the female who has the egg, who is mother and father. There is no confusion about that. And if the mother identifies as a man, but she has ovaries and she's pregnant and she's, giving birth or donating her egg, yeah, she is a mother, even if she identifies as a man, right? So for us, there is no confusion. It's always clear, right? When we work with family constellation, there can either be or. There is no in between. Of course, Bert Hellinger wasn't faced with these new relationships and identifications and so on. So he has no teachings about that. But what I can tell you is that when he worked with gay relationships, yeah, and you might see that in old videos or read that in books or something, come across that. What he has perceived is that when it is an issue, so let's say the client, the black guy here, right? He is married, but he is unfulfilled in his marriage because he feels he drawn to a man, like he wants to have man relationship, right? Then it is an issue, yeah. So he comes with this issue, you want it solved. So you look in the family system, and it's completely unrelated maybe to to being gay or what. It is, you look in the family system, what is the trauma that causes this? Yeah. So these are the issues, the cases that Bert Hellinger shared. Yeah, when there was an issue. If there is no issue, if everybody is happy, you don't have these clients. they don't come. Nobody comes because they are happy with their gender identification. They only come if they are not. Yeah. And then it becomes an issue that you can look up. Yeah. Look at with the methods of Bert Hellinger's orders of love. Yeah? So we don't need to engage into this discussion from our viewpoint of this gendering. For us, it's what is the issue, who belongs to the family system. Yeah, let's look where it came from, whatever the issue is. And the rest is, we kind of tick that as stories. For us, it's stories. Yeah. It's either the story about the abuse of the great auntie or something like that, no? Or it's a story about identifying with another gender. Yeah, that it is a story. We are looking into the soul movement. Yeah, that's very important. And you will see over the course of time also when you're on the workshops and you observe me facilitating and you're in the practice workshop and you hear the clients in the open workshops talking about their issue, what is actually relevant from what they share and what is not relevant. And it's really important that you drop everything that is not relevant. Yeah. And only focus on that what is relevant. And that Bert Hellinger was a master in it. Like he was also considered to be very rude. He said, I had enough, this line in the middle of a sentence. That's enough. Right? Let's, and then he would ask a representative to get up and represent, I don't know, the client's great-grandfather, although he never mentioned it. Yeah. So to this extent, you don't need to do that. You don't need to shock your clients. You're not Bert Hellinger, but you can, gently guide your clients into the right direction. Yeah.
Have you been in the situation where someone's been offended about not being politically correct regards the gender issue? Like
no, not yet. And I never had that issue. And I'm really curious to see how that is in the constellation. But no, actually, I had a one-on-one client just recently who obviously took hormones and gendered into the male form, but she uses her female name and she was talking about a partner and she wasn't making it a thing. It was about something else. So I thought, oh, well, that's not an issue. We don't need to talk about that, apparently. That's all good. So I leave it to the client, of course, right? Like if that's not an issue, that's not an issue. I'm not opposing that on them.
What about if you can't identify them as such? It might not be, I don't know if it might be important sometimes, but if someone's your client and you don't actually for sure know if they are male or female,
that's a good question.
Or they say they are transgender, and you don't know what they were born with, and they don't want to identify as that, so they don't want to say that's what they are. Does that matter? Would that matter?
No, I don't think so. If it's not obvious and if it's not, it wouldn't be the issue then, right? And the good thing is, if you work with representatives, let's say representatives of the generation of the grandparents, yeah, you ask them, are you the grandmother or the grandfather? Because the representatives, they can tell you if they are the male part of the couple or the female part. They can tell you. These problems we don't have because we are always going. It's the same with re-traumatizing. We don't have that. We are not therapists. We are not looking at a current trauma of somebody. Yeah, we are looking at an intergenerational trauma. We are actually not working with the people who had the trauma. Yeah, they are represented, and that's the beauty of this methodology. There is no side effect as such, as typical as from therapies. Yeah, and if of course the client has a trauma and comes with the trauma, we are not going through their trauma. We know, we find it in the former generation, right? Yeah. No, I don't know. But I would be curious to see if this whole intergendering causes. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea.
I did it in my clinic. That's why I'm, that's why I'm wondering, because it can be very awkward when you don't know, you've got someone on the table and you don't know exactly what their sexual organ is as
Yeah,
such.
yeah.
It's like,
I see that. Yeah, that must be a little bit difficult. Yeah. We don't have this problem in general as family constellation facilitators. Okay, good. All right, so this question's answered. So let's, we probably have to whip through the other slides a little bit faster. Hang on. Okay, so when we touched it already, and I just go through it. It's just a repetition. When we talk about who belongs to a family system, we talk about all children. Yeah, that a sperm and an egg, yeah, has produced, and from the same from this parent, right? Not from other parents. Like we have these cases of sperm and egg donorship, of course, and surrogate pregnancy. I wrote a blog post about it. If you're interested, look up on the website. So these are all special cases. We are not concerned about that right now, right? So we just know there's a man and a woman. They come together. They form a child, and this belongs to the family system by blood. That's as easy as that is. So now it is not so easy because often these children are not seen, and especially if it happens many, many generations before the client does know nothing about them. Yeah. So therefore, we have representatives to show us that they do exist and they need to be seen. And that is in the case of the so-called lost twin, or the right term is the vanishing twin. We will talk about that later. I just, flick that onto you as an information now. The hidden special needs child that we have seen Katharina and Evelyn in the workshop in Christchurch recently. That was a typical case of the lost child. A child who was given away to adoption often is a case of it. The aborted child is the most cases you see. Yeah. The most cases you see is the aborted child, because we have also then the victim-perpetrator relationship that forms the trauma. Because obviously, doesn't matter if it's legal or not, that's a murder. That is, the mother takes the life of the child. That's just what it is. No morals, just what it is. Yeah. The miscarried child is the same has the same impact. The child is just dead. Yeah, it doesn't need to be an act of violence. It needs to be acknowledged. The stillborn child, of course, the child who dies early, and nobody talks about it. And I'm not talking about a child in the first generation or the second. It could be in the fourth or fifth generation, right? Nobody talks about that. No, there is no memory of this child. Yeah, and this is causing the trauma in the family system because it's forgotten, it's lost from memory. Laura?
So often these things will happen, but there's no trauma associated with them.
It is always. The
The
family
child who
system,
died,
yeah, the
it's
family
always
system, the
gonna cause
trauma
trauma.
comes not from the death. The trauma comes from not giving this child a rightful place. And that is the second order of love. And we talk about that tomorrow. So hold your horses. We will look at it tomorrow, where it comes from, the trauma. Bound together by destiny. We talked about either bloodline, that would be the lost children. They are part of the family system by bloodline. The other alternative is bound together by destiny, yeah? And that can be temporarily or through lifetimes. Also by soul agreement or karma, right? This is also destiny relationships that can make somebody being part of somebody else's family system. Accidents are often a destiny relationship, because obviously nobody takes deliberately somebody else's life, but it happens. It just happens, right? And through this destiny, they are bound together. Tragedies, same as accidents. Diseases, yeah, diseases is also a destiny relationship that can happen. Think of somebody infect somebody else with a fatal disease, yeah, that is a destiny relationship. Through caring can be established a destiny relationship that is often in the case of adoption, not often, sometimes. It's not the rule, but sometimes the adopted parents belong to the family system through destiny because of extraordinary caring for this child, you know, not the normal caring for the child, that they give more, much more than just feeding them and giving them a home. Destiny, if it's temporary, the bound can end, yeah, by fulfillment of the duty. That is often when the former partner comes into play, because it's only a former partner because the relationship has ended, and the relationship had ended by destiny because they were not destined to stay together. And for example, have this child that they have with a new partner, who is then entangled with the former partner, maybe. And that would be a case of fulfillment of the duty. Death can, of course, finish a destiny relationship. The signs of a destiny relationship is in a partnership here where you find it the most is leaving the partner although love is felt. So when they say, oh, I still love you, but I can't be with you, that is that for some reason, the destiny relationship has come to an end. It's like an expiry date. Something has been fulfilled. Yeah. Or the other way around, like we know this case is more often, not leaving the partner, although no love is felt. Yeah. So there is a destiny to serve the partner. Still. Yeah. Then we talk about the forgotten or dismissed. In general, the forgotten or dismissed are family members no one talks about. So interestingly, when you're interviewing your client in the briefing or when he sits on the hot chair and he shares, he shares some family stories, then it is what you hear or what you learn to hear is what is unsaid. The person they are not mentioning, not the person they are mentioning, because the person they are mentioning are often including people who don't belong, right? Don't belong to the family system. But what we hear is whom they not talk about. Just an example, you have a client sitting there and he's dragging on about his mother and his bad relationship with his mother and his lovers, the lovers of his mother, and all kinds of stories, yeah, that might sound very drastic, but what is he not talking about at all costs? Is his father, right? Completely unmentioned. So as a facilitator, that's not a rule, but as a facilitator, you hear that. And you also, because you're connected to the morphogenetic field, you will also receive the information. It's about the father. And then you have some tools that you all learn here, how to find out if it's about the father. By asking the right questions or choosing the different representatives or something like that. So family member no one talks about are most important in our work. We're looking at conscience. So the family members no one talks about, they normally have left the family conscience. They have been dismissed, or they have been dismissed because of some, for example, sexual preferences that happened in former times a lot. But that's just an example. Or they have vanished in a war situation. Not everybody died in the war who never came back. Some also took it as a opportunity to start a new life somewhere else, yeah, and be declared dead at home. So that is interestingly things that normally family constellation will reveal. So nothing really stays hidden. They could be, if they are religious, the family system excommunicated or disowned members of the family system. So all these people belong to the family system, although the family would say they don't. But that is not what we are hearing. We know the first order of love, and we know they have a right because they belong to the family system. The dead also belong to the family system, and we in fact work mainly with representatives who are representing and resonating with past members of the family. So for us, this is completely normal. We are not thinking, and in family therapy, that's totally unheard of. They only working with the living in classical family therapy. But in family constellation, completely different story. We are working with the souls, the soul movement, and most of the representatives we are working with are representing people who have passed on already. They belong to the system because they belong in 7 generations, right? And they don't give up their right to belong to the family system because they leave their physical body and it's decaying somewhere in a grave, right? And we will talk about the soul journey also in module 4. So the question is, of course, who or what's dying? Yeah. It's not the member of the family system who is dying. It's just the physical body or vehicle that they leave behind. The family system stays intact, stays together with everybody who belongs due to the first order of love on a soul level. And also Bert Hellinger called it movements of the soul, his work, by the way. Yeah. So that is another term he liked to use for family constellation. Because he always said what we're observing is the movement of the soul. Is that a question, Evelyn?
I have got quite a specific question that is burning at the moment. Shall I leave it to the end, or it's got to do with that?
Yeah, ask. Yeah, what is it?
So something that's been sitting with me since the last constellation was that when a dead person comes in, but they have only died later on in life, but they're influencing let's say a sibling, like what happened in my constellation, a sibling's situation, but they've only died when the sibling was already an adult. So it wasn't exactly that the mother's love was taken away when they were a child because that person died, but it was later on when they were an adult. Does that still then make it just as important as if it would happen when they were young?
The importance is not the death. The importance is the not acknowledging that the death belonged to the family. Yeah, that is the importance. If there is an aborted child in a family and everybody talks about it, it has a name and everybody's opened up about it, that's not causing a trauma. Because it belongs. Yeah. But normally they are all, nobody talks about because they are either ashamed or feel guilt. Or they simply don't know because it was in former generation. That are the 3 options. Otherwise, there is no problem.
There was can you hear me? Yeah. There was a problem even though the child was acknowledged that it died. But the mother was turning away from the other child because of that child's death.
Exactly. And that's what we call an interrupted movement towards the mother. That's a very special case. yeah, that we will also train in, of course, because it happens very often, but that has nothing to do with the belonging here. Because it's obvious that the mother and the child belong together, right, to the same family system. So that's not the problem. The problem is that they have a trauma and interrupted movement towards each other. Yeah. This is why we do some exercise in module 4, where we go through all of this, including the interrupted movement towards the mother. Adoptions, let's touch it. There's also an article, a blog post on the website from me, which gives you more background information about adoptions and family constellations. I invite you to read about it. Yeah, the entanglement, because of the trauma, is only in the blood-related families. Yeah, so not in the adoptive. So that the child who is adopted into a family is not, entangled with family members from the adopted family, because there is no possible inherited damage, coming through the line. With adopted child parents, there is a destiny relationship, if it's a strong reason for it, yeah. Especially when the adoption causes an imbalance, right? When the adoption is causing an imbalance in either family system, either the system the child comes from or the child goes into. Caregiving is a better option. Adoptions always cause disruptions in the flow of love of the family, yeah, because the child is cut off of the rightful place in their birth family. Yeah, they take the name, they take the culture and everything from the adopted family, and normally they don't have any ties to their blood family. And that is causing, of course, a trauma. And for future generations, I'm not talking about the child. That's it. I always think in multiple generations. Yeah. Therefore, Bert Hellinger had once said, it is much better, instead of adopting a child that needs care, to become a caregiver for the child, because then it stays obviously the child in the family of his mother and father, like has the same name and has a relation, and everybody knows, although they are not around, everybody knows the child belongs. And in the first order of love, it is all about belonging. That's all. Yeah, we only look, is the first order obeyed? Are the souls who are part of a family system, are they acknowledged as belonging to it, yeah, or are they not? That's all we need to know in the first order of love. Aha, we have a new trainee with us. Very cute. If the adoption was selfish motivated, for example, yeah, and I actually do know an example of that. For example, because one has a single child and wants a playmate for the single child, so they don't grow up alone or something, yeah. Or they want to substitute a hole in their life for a dead child with an adopted child, yeah. The family soul is always compensating for it, yeah. Something will happen that is kind of trying, and that's the third order of love, to balance that out. For example, the partner will leave in turn of that, the own child has a fatal accident, or something like that. Yeah. So that is what the orders of love teach us, that you cannot trick or fail the orders in the family system. Yeah? They always want to be intact, if you will. We see in family constellation that the blood-related other way around. When you have representatives for a family system in which there is a case of adoption, you always see the blood-related family members, not the family members of the adopted family. We talked about that before, because they don't belong. Yeah. So even, and that's actually standard, if the client is adopted, and you ask the client, okay, choose a representative for mother and father. That's all you say. And they choose a representative for mother and father. The client will think that's the adoptive parent because that's all they know. But you as a facilitator, you know there are the real father and mother representatives, not the adoptive. Yeah. And again, you don't need to share that at this stage with the client, but it's only that you know, because the adoptive parents don't belong to the family system of the client. So I repeat that, so it really sinks in. In family constellations, you only see the people who belong to the family system. That's the first order of love. If you work with others who are not member of the family system, you're simply not doing a family constellation. Right? Energy is like a stream flowing in one direction. That's probably here where I convey a little picture. What family constellation is. Think of a stream that comes from a source up the hill, forms a little trickle, and then it becomes more and more and more and more and more and more, and eventually this stream goes into the mighty river, and the river goes into the ocean, right? This stream of water follows physics, right? It flows from up down, and it cannot be any different. It cannot flow up, for example. And this sheer physics we see also in family systems, because instead of water, what we need is the flow of love. The love is what nourishes one generation for the other. Yeah? And this love that also cares for the next generation and make sure it survives, which is the greatest care in the family system, to make sure that next generation is able to procreate as well, is this stream of water, is the stream of love. And when there is a trauma, it's like a rock is put in the stream and the water is blocked. The water cannot flow. And that's what's happening with a trauma that is causing an epigenetic an epigenetic damage in the next generation through inheritance. That is this block, this rock in the stream of water, in the stream of love. The love cannot flow. And in turn, so as the water cannot flow to the stream, the next generations cannot receive the love neither. So the encumbrances, the life circumstances become harder and harder and harder for each generation until this rock is taken out of the stream and put aside so it can flow, like the love can flow again. And that's exactly what we do. That's all we do. We help the client to remove this rock from the river. So we don't need to add anything. We don't need to find for the river a new bed or anything complicated. Right? We only need to remove the obstacle. That's all. At this stage, I'm normally asked, why is only traumatic information stored in the morphogenetic field? Why is not every generation stored there, right? From everything that ever happens in the family system? The answer is because everything that is nourishing and caring, aka love, is like the water, it flows. Everything that is traumatic, like the rock, solid and rock and motionless, is the information that is stored in the morphogenetic field to be revealed in the family constellation later, to later generations, because the family system wants this rock to be removed or transformed into love. And this is why it's stored as a memory. And only these traumatic informations are stored as a memory. So when we are accessing the morphogenetic field, we are not accessing happy, ever living after memories. With other words, if you have a family constellation and representative and they're having a good time and they are laughing and chatting and whatever, right? That's not true. That's not the information from the morphogenetic field. Yeah. It could be either that nobody's connecting to the morphogenetic field and making up their own things, yeah, or it is that the traumatic experience is underneath so severe that that is just a behavior to avoid to look at it. That's all. But it is certainly not a genuine information of the family system saying, oh, there's no problem, move on. That's not why the client is there, right? So don't be tricked, right, into that belief. The orders we are talking about in this part, the first order of love, are observed and uncovered by Bert Hellinger and by many other facilitators around the world since decades, no? But they are not invented. They are like gravity that forces the water down and not up. It's the same with the orders. They are always there. If we acknowledge them or not, if we know of them or not, if we work with them or not, they are there, right? And we choose, of course, as facilitators and clients often of family constellation that we want to work with them. And we want to look at them. And we want them to be revealed. So let me talk briefly about the new versus the old family constellation to round that a little bit up. Here about family constellation, Bert Hellinger's original family constellation that he has developed and then also done with clients, and then he has also taught that, is now called the old family constellation. And that is a methodology you still see with facilitators who have trained with him back then. That is that you are interviewed as a client about your family history, that you are asked before the event to gather as many information as possible about your family system. Then when you come to a constellation, to a workshop, and you want to constellate, that you then have lots and lots of representatives there, because the facilitator would choose a representative for the client, one for the father, one for the mother, practically for all these persons you saw on my animated chart, right? And then the facilitator would observe all these representatives, and then through experience and knowledge, they would find out where is the disruptance, where is the flow of love interrupted, where's the original trauma, and then work with them. Now you can see how long that takes, right? And how many people you need for that. So over time, he found out that it is not necessary, that the morphogenetic field is able to reveal the information where about the trauma, where it happened, without any generations in between. And that he has called the new family constellation. That was about 2000 to 2005 or so, that new development. Before, he has called this, now called old family constellation, movements of the souls, and the new family constellation he has called moving with the spirit mind. Auf Deutsch, gehen mit dem Geiste. And that was what we now say, it's a new family constellation, because in fact, we are guided by the spiritual consciousness we will talk about in a minute, and allow us to be completely guided and going right to the source where it is, without detours, without all this time and all these people you need to go through all the stages, because they are for the healing, not necessary. I have created the term, I think I am the one, maybe somebody else as well, but I don't know of them, the next family constellation, because I think we went a step further now in our developing family constellations as a facilitator, because now we have the beauty of the World Wide Web and Zoom, and thank goodness to the to the worldwide lockdowns, we have discovered the power of these meetings, because they are also for family constellations extremely useful. Because when you gather online, it has the same impact on the representatives as if it would be in person. And you will see that on our online workshops, that the connection of the representatives to the morphogenetic field of the family system is as strong, if not stronger, when they are alone at home. Yeah, that's a beautiful discovery. And that was also the beginning of Family Constellation Virtual, this discovery. Yeah. So I like to call it the next family constellation. And who knows what comes out of all of this? Yeah. Constellating organizations, like we discussed before, yes, it is absolutely possible. All kinds of organizations can be constellated. They all, however, following the 3 orders of law. Yeah, that's indispensable, this rule. So a hot topic from Bert Hellinger was conscience and destiny. And I have tried to nail it down so I can convey that in 10 minutes. This, I know it's crazy. This module, or especially this part 1 of module 1, is very theoretically. We will become much more practical soon. Yeah, but you have to go through that because there's a lot of information I just need to pass on to you before we can proceed. Yeah. So conscience and destiny. There are 3 consciences in Bert Hellinger's teaching. The one is a personal conscience, then we have the collective conscience, and we have the conscience of the spirit mind. We also have intertwined with the destiny and common destiny, and we will look at that now in a little bit more detail. The personal conscience is in the family, or let's start with conscience in general. What is conscience in the family constellation? It is action. Every action is guided by the personal conscience. When we do something, we don't do that randomly. We have a reason to do that, if we are rationalizing that or not. Yeah, and this is coming from our personal conscience. We also call it conditioning. Yeah, you can also call it conditioning, actually. I think that's pretty similar. Yeah? The way we are conditioned in our family, in our culture, in the environment we are born into, that is forming on a conscience level the personal conscience. Yeah, that also means that harmful actions are often based on a good conscience. Yeah, because we are born into that, and we are conditioned into that, and we don't perceive it as bad. Yeah? There is a different set of morals in this family system. The conscience only works in systems. It cannot work in fields where there is chaos, because the field is also open to everything. Yeah? So there is no organized principle, and therefore there is also no conscience. Outside a system like the family system reveals the personal conscience its true face, because all of a sudden, and that is when family members become how do you call that, Aussteiger, if they step out of their environment, like like when you immigrate to New Zealand, for example, from far away. Yeah, you are not following the personal conscience, assuming that not everyone in your family has immigrated to New Zealand. If you're the first one who has done so, you step out of it, and then you can see from outside, and then you can notice your own personal conscience and form a new set of rules. So that's the great opportunity to do that. This conscience is not logic, it's not rationalized, it's more tribal, animal nature, and in general, not a good guide, unless you don't need to flight and fight. Yeah, that's another story. But in normal day-to-day life, it is just telling you what you've been told to do, not what you decide to do. right? So it's not a good guide unless you want to stay in the family conscience. Then, of course, it could be a good guide. Connected with the emotion of guilt and atonement, many bad things have been done with a feeling of innocence, right? All this religious wars, for example, that's a very good example, where all this happened and nobody really felt that that is a problem, even taking on other people's lives. Of course, the soul, it's a different story, will convey that completely differently to the family system and store that as a memory in the morphogenetic sphere. But this, because guilt and innocence are a reflection of the personal consciousness, aka the conditioning, yeah, they are not equal to good or bad in one's action, right? So you cannot say that. Therefore, it's also not a good guide. The personal conscience is felt more than objectively detectable, and it's, as I said, it cannot be rationalized anyhow. So there is no need or not even the possibility to think about it. It's all reactive, if you will. Yeah. We perceive our own actions as either good or bad, depending on our personal conscience. Of course, that's our values. Let's call it values. Yeah. We have these values and we think, yeah, that's good values and that's bad values, not knowing that that's not our values. It's the values we have been conditioned by our family. However, it is important for survival that we form a personal conscience, because